Look at Caitlin Clark, how she's kept
Oh, yeah.
just taken over the country, and for that matter, maybe the world, and how she's encouraged so many young girls now to participate in sports, whether it's basketball or soccer or volleyball.
When Wayne Gretzky, the Great One himself, the undisputed GOAT of hockey, the man who holds more NHL records than some teams have wins, when that man opens his mouth about another athlete, you better believe the entire sports world stops and listens. And what it is said about Caitlin Clark will have WNBA executives either celebrating or panicking, depending on whether they've been paying attention to what's been happening right in front of their faces.
Clark will go down as the best WNBA player ever. Yes, the best woman to touch a basketball.
Wayne Gretzky delivered what can only be described as the most powerful endorsement Caitlin Clark has ever received. And folks, this wasn't some throwaway comment or polite sports talk. This was Wayne Gretzky recognizing a kindred spirit in Clark's revolutionary impact on women's basketball. Look at Caitlin Clark, just how she's taken over the country, for that matter, maybe even the world, Gretzky said with the kind of conviction that only comes from someone who's lived through their own sports. Revolution, how she's encouraged so many young girls now to participate in sports, whether it's basketball, soccer, or volleyball.
My dad used to always say, the greatest thing about sports is that you learn so much about real life. You learn how to be unselfish. You learn how to be dedicated. You learn how to work hard. You learn how to win. And then you learn how to pick yourself up off the ground when you lose. And that's what life is all about. And so I just have so much respect for so many of these athletes that come along now. And as a fan, I just love it.
Think about what Gretzky just did there. He didn't just praise Clark, he elevated her to the level of a cultural phenomenon when the greatest hockey player of all time, a man who scored 894 goals and dished out an unfathomable 1,963 assists in his NHL career. When that man says someone has taken over the country, and maybe even the world, that's not sports commentary, that's a declaration of athletic royalty, recognizing athletic royalty.
I think that they finally have their star. They finally have somebody that is going to drive viewership and drive excitement about the league. Arenas are actually starting to fill up more than 20%. And if Caitlin Clark is playing, they're selling out.
But here's where it gets really spicy, folks. Gretzky's comments came at the exact moment the WNBA is learning what life looks like without their transcendent star. Because while the Great One was singing Clark's praises, a league was getting a brutal reality check about just how dependent they become on one player, the numbers don't lie. And they're absolutely devastating for anyone who still wants to pretend that Caitlin Clark isn't. Carrying this entire league on her shoulders when Clark suffered that left quadriceps strain and was announced to miss at least 2 weeks, the WNBA didn't just lose a player, they lost their entire economic engine.
This just in. Caitlin Clark not playing brings down ticket prices in the WNBA. So apparently the price to get into the Fever versus Sky game on June 7th was originally $86 because Caitlin Clark was playing, right? Just 48 hours ago, it was $86. And now it's $25 because she's not playing. This alone silences that Caitlin Clark isn't the only reason why people watch the WNBA. Clearly, she's moving the needle. Because if people were coming to watch Miss Reese like she said they were, these ticket prices would not have been dropping like this.
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. Let's talk about what happened to the Indiana Fever. Without their superstar, they traveled to Washington to face the Mystics, a game that was supposed to be appointment television. Instead, we got a harsh dose of reality. The Fever lost 83-77, dropping their record to 23. But the real story wasn't the score. It was what happened in the stands and on television screens across America.
But there is no other playmaker better than Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. And I don't know if there ever has been. And that is great. But that also kind of sucks if you're the team that is missing her. So this to me looked like a scrimmage game that a new team coming together without their star playmaker was learning how to get to know each other and how to play with each other from scratch.
Ticket prices for that Mystics game, they plummeted by 47% the moment Clark's injury was announced. Think about that. For a second, nearly half the value of those tickets evaporated because one player couldn't suit up the game that was moved to a larger venue specifically to accommodate the Clark effect. Suddenly became just another WNBA game that casual fans didn't care about the television numbers. Tell an even more brutal story. The Fever Mystics game without Clark drew 357,000 viewers on NBA TV. Just 8 days earlier, when Clark played against the Atlanta Dream on the same network, 581,000 people tuned, and that's a 38% drop-off that is WNBA executives waking up in cold sweats.
Saturday, as previously noted, there is simply no substitute for having Clark actually in the lineup. The Fever's previous NBA TV game against Atlanta averaged 581,000. In addition, Clark's final game before injury gave you $2.2 million on CBS. Folks, give it up a round of applause. 300,000 viewers. 357,000 viewers on NBA TV.
But wait, it gets worse, much worse. The broader WNBA ratings without Clark aren't just disappointing, they're catastrophic. While Clark's games this season have maintained their record-breaking pace, drawing over 2 million viewers, consistently everything else has fallen off a cliff faster than a stock market crash. According to the data, games featuring Caitlin Clark this season have averaged 178 million viewers, while games without her have averaged a measly 394,000 viewers. That's not just a difference, that's a 199% gap. That's so wide you could drive a freight train through it. To put this in perspective, that even the most mathematically challenged sports executive could understand Clark's games draw 3 times more viewers than games without her.
WNBA is pretty much at a standstill with Caitlin Clark not being able to play. I mean, rubber is about to meet the road. I mean, everything they said last year is going to be unproven like no other, bro. They stated the league was on this trajectory to success many, many moons before Caitlin Clark got there. And hell, Caitlin Clark wasn't the only rookie to be the reason why the viewership was up. You had rookies like Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, and many others. Well, I'm here to tell you that is just not the truth, bro. The WNBA is in a crucial moment right now, and a lot of people are scratching their heads and wondering why would they lie to the people, having everybody think that Caitlin Clark was not the only reason this league was going in this upward trajectory.
Week 1 of the season showed promise beyond Clark. Games Paige Becker's WNBA debut pulled 639,000 viewers, and the Golden State Vaukees' inaugural game drew 581,000. For a brief moment, optimists thought maybe the WNBA had finally turned a corner. Maybe the rising tide of interest Clark created was lifting all boats. Maybe the league had found sustained relevance. Then week 2 happened, and those dreams crashed harder than a meteor hitting Earth. The ratings didn't just drop, they reverted back to pre-Clark levels and actually went lower than last year's averages. Games that should have capitalized on opening week momentum instead delivered 431,000 and 344,000 viewers, respectively. We're talking about numbers that are worse than the 2023 regular season average of 505,000 viewers per broadcast. This is the nightmare scenario that anyone with half a brain saw coming from a mile away. Here's where this story goes from disappointing to absolutely infuriating. While Wayne Gretzky is out there giving Clark the respect she deserves, while the numbers prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that she's the most valuable asset in women's sports history, we have players and pundits within the WNBA ecosystem who seem hell-bent on tearing down the very person who's made their increased paychecks possible.
Why does Caitlin Clark have these unrealistic expectations, but Paige Beckers and these other players don't? And it makes no sense to me. So that is hate, because that's called moving the goalpost. So she has to win a championship in her first year to be considered the GOAT.
You know, the targeting of Clark has been obvious and systematic throughout her rookie season. And into this year, she's been subjected to physical play that borders on assault, flagrant fouls, dangerous plays, reckless targeting. And what has the WNBA done? They've acted like it's just part of the game. The evidence has been mounting for months. Video footage shows Clark using heat packs on her leg during games, suggesting she's been playing through pain while getting hammered by opponent coach Stephanie White. Admitted after the MRI results that she wasn't even sure when Clark got injured, which tells you everything you need to know about how normalized the targeting has become. But here's the kicker, the absolutely mind-numbing part that should have every rational person screaming at their television. These same players who are trying to hurt Clark are getting paid more because of her. The rising tide that Clark created has lifted all boats, just like Gretzky said sports should do. She's brought unprecedented attention, television revenue, and fan interest to a league that was struggling for relevance for over 2 decades.
So as you guys can see here, that's a major hit on Caitlin Clark on the ground. We all remember that last year, man. Down with the shield, she up out of there, though. Kennedy Carter, another one, up out of there, though. Eugene Currington eye poke situation. This is just a brutal beating this young lady has been taking for a year now, man. And for the W to allow this to happen time after time again. And we see players like Breanna Stewart being able to draw 16 damn fouls, and the game ain't even facilitated through her. She's not even on the ball, bro. Like, it's getting out of hand, and I'm telling you.
When Wayne Gretzky speaks about Caitlin Clark, he's not just offering praise, he's applying the Gretzky standard, the measuring stick of what it means to be a transformational athlete. Gretzky knows what it's like to change a sport. Because he took hockey from a niche interest to mainstream American entertainment. He made the impossible look routine and brought millions of new fans to arenas across North America. Gretzky sees in Clark what he experienced himself, the burden and the privilege of being the face of your sport. Clark, in just 44 career games, has already rewritten multiple WNBA record books. She set the league's all-time single-season assist record as a rookie and made the second most three-pointers in a single season. She's averaging 19 points, 3 assists, and 6 rebounds, while transforming every arena she enters into appointment television. But more importantly, both Gretzky and Clark understand something that their critics seem to miss: individual excellence elevates everyone around them. Gretzky's dominance didn't diminish other hockey players. It made the entire sport more popular and more profitable. Clark's success isn't taking opportunities away from other WNBA players. It's creating opportunities that never existed before.
We got to remember, they lost $40 million still last year. All right? They're getting a new media rights deal. That thing won't be worth shit if Caitlin Clark was to either get really injured and couldn't play, or decided to just say, I'm not going to play here anymore, I'm going overseas. Where, by the way, they would pay her, my God, some of those countries might pay her $20 million a year to come over there and play. And I'm not kidding you.
The financial impact of Clark's absence is already being measured in real time, and the numbers are staggering. According to Dr. Ryan Brewer from Indiana University, Columbus, Clark accounted for 5% of the WNBA's overall activity during the 2024 season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television viewership. 1 in every 6 tickets sold at a WNBA venue could be traced back to Clark. Before injury, Dr. Brewer projected that Clark's potential impact on the 2025 WNBA season could be nearly $1 billion. Think about that number for a moment. We're talking about one player generating close to $1 billion in economic activity for a league that was fighting for survival just 2 years ago. The immediate aftermath of her injury announcement proved just how dependent the league had become on their Golden Goose ticket prices. The Chicago Sky rematch dropped over 300% in less than 48 hours. The highly anticipated June 7 game at the United Center, which seats 23,500 spectators, went from premium pricing to bargain basement deals overnight.
Caitlin Clark could be projected to be $1 billion revenue maker for the WNBA this year. Now, obviously, the WNBA won't see that money, won't see most of that money, and it's not just in the WNBA, but it's all of her sponsorships, it's all of her appearances, it's all that stuff. But according to the projections, we're looking at $875 million could easily eclipse $1 billion on her economic impact. Caitlin Clark entering the league last year was responsible for 26.5% of all of their economic activity. So revenue from merchandise, which again, with the CBA as it is currently, she doesn't see a dime of any of that. TV, and then ticket sales, obviously, which again, they don't get anything from that.
What makes Gretzky's endorsement of Clark so powerful is that he's providing a blueprint for how the WNBA should be handling their transcendent star. Clark has shown the same maturity and grace under pressure despite being targeted physically and criticized unfairly. She's maintained her focus on basketball and growing the sport. When asked about the flagrant foul incident with Angel Reese, Clark deflected drama and focused on the game itself. It was just a good play on the basketball. I'm not sure what the refs saw to upgrade it, and that's up to their discretion. It's a take foul to put them at the free throw line. I've watched a lot of basketball in my life. That's exactly what it was. I wasn't trying to do anything malicious. That's not the type of player I am. That's championship level maturity. From someone who's carrying an entire league on her shoulders, Wayne Gretzky's comments about Caitlin Clark coming at a moment when the WNBA can no longer deny the obvious they have built there. Entire resurgence around one player, and without her they're right back where they started. The viewership numbers, attendance figures, and ticket sales all tell the same story. Caitlin Clark isn't just the best player in the W. She's the only reason most people watch the W.
Can we be clear about this? If Caitlin Clark were not in the WNBA, we would not be talking about the WNBA. She's the only ticket draw in the WNBA. A large percentage of all tickets sold in the WNBA are so people can watch Caitlin Clark play basketball. No one cares about Angel Reese. Should be drawing flies if she were playing not against Caitlin Clark on the court right now. Angel Reese has basically become the Bill Laimbeer to Caitlin Clark's Larry Bird, essentially. That is where we now are.
The season opener between the Fever and Chicago Sky drew 7 million viewers on ABC, making it the most watched WNBA game on ESPN platforms ever. Clark's most recent game before the injury against the New York Liberty still drew 22 million viewers on CBS, making it the second most watched WNBA game ever on the network of the 23 WNBA games that attracted at least 1 million viewers. In 2024-20 featured Clark. These aren't small differences or statistical anomalies. These are massive, undeniable gaps that prove what Gretzky instinctively understood: some athletes transcend their sport and become cultural phenomena. Clark has reached that level, and the WNBA should be doing everything in their power to protect and promote their most valuable asset. Instead, we get lukewarm responses from Commissioner Kathy Angelbert, insufficient protection from referees, and resentment from players who should be thanking Clark for making their profession more relevant and profitable than it's ever been.
Between the Fever and the Liberty, peaking at 3.2 million viewers. 3.2. And again, second most viewed game on CBS ever. I have no idea what the most viewed game was ever. I have no idea. Could it have been Fever Sky last year? I have absolutely no idea. Could it have been the finals? Were the finals on CBS? I have absolutely no idea. But like, this is a crazy situation. And the craziest thing is, for the WNBA, you allowed a game which peaked at 3.2 million viewers to have 3.2 million viewers watch the worst refereeing performance of all time. What did they expect? Like, the WNBA should at least get some full-time referees.
When Wayne Gretzky says Caitlin Clark has taken over the country and is encouraging young girls to participate in sports, he's not offering empty praise. He's diagnosing a cultural phenomenon with the expertise of someone who's lived through it himself. He recognizes that Clark represents something bigger than basketball, just like he represented something bigger than hockey. The tragedy is that while legends like Gretzky are celebrating Clark's impact and what it means for the future of women's sports, the WNBA establishment seems determined to waste the greatest opportunity in their league's history. They've allowed their biggest star to be targeted, physically failed to protect their most valuable asset, and now they're learning what life looks like without.